3 months after Franklin Hicks got back together with his ex-girlfriend, he suddenly asked me, "Has Rita been hiding and crying secretly again these days?" Friends looked at each other and said, "It seems like we haven't seen her for a long time. Why did I hear that she got married a few days ago?" "That's impossible. It's just a rumor. They want to force Franklin to come back to her." Franklin said calmly, "Go tell her we'll meet at the usual place tonight." Friends started to cheer. "If Rita cries, will you feel soft-hearted?" He chuckled, "Let's see." But that night I didn't come until late at night. He called me and I didn't answer. He has a girlfriend and I'm married, so I should avoid suspicion. 01. The day Franklin got back together with his ex-girlfriend. It happened to be my birthday. When we were about to cut the cake, the door of the room was suddenly pushed open by someone from the outside. It's Alice Cooper again, the ex-girlfriend who nearly cost Franklin his life. She is really beautiful, and her dress and makeup are extremely exquisite. Even the hair seemed to be glowing. I subconsciously hid my hands behind my back, but the thin calluses on my fingers accidentally snagged the silk threads on the skirt. "Franklin!" Alice pushed away her friend. She rushed to Franklin holding her skirt. "I give up. I'll bow my head this time." She spoke submissive words but held her chin up proudly. I tried hard not to let the tears fall. The room was very quiet. I subconsciously looked at Franklin. He had a cold face and sat on the sofa with an indifferent expression. I didn't even look at Alice the whole time, but the corners of his lips were tense. "Franklin, I'm only asking you this once. Would you like to make peace with me?" As soon as Alice finished speaking, Franklin suddenly laughed sarcastically. "Who do you think you are? You can break up if you want and reconcile if you want." As he said that, he reached out his hand and pulled me into his arms. The movement was a bit heavy and my nose hit his strong chest. I felt so sad that I wanted to cry. "Alice, I have a girlfriend, can't you see?" Franklin lowered his head and his kiss followed. In the corners of my slightly wet eyes, Alice's face turned pale instantly. "Okay, you're cruel enough." She pointed at Franklin, her tears falling harder and harder. "Franklin, I will never talk to you again in my life." After saying that, she glared at me with tears in her eyes. Then he pushed the table over violently. The champagne tower fell over and the glasses broke. The cake was also smashed to pieces. Alice and I were both scratched by the flying broken glass. She is the arm and I am the face. But Franklin let go of me and subconsciously grabbed her. "Don't move, it's bleeding." His eyes were full of heartache. "None of your business, just feel sorry for your girlfriend." Alice pushed him away, crying, and ran out. Franklin seemed to have forgotten me. He stood there, hesitating for just 2 seconds. He quickly chased after him. He didn't even look back at me. 02. Maybe he was afraid that I would be embarrassed. Maybe it's because they are just friends of Franklin and Alice. It has nothing to do with people like me. So, one after another, everyone left the room. I am wearing a beautiful dress, covering the wound on his face. That sad emotion is like an undercurrent. It's swallowing me silently. This was the grandest and most luxurious birthday party I have ever had in my life. This beautiful 2-layer cake. When I was a kid, I used to lean on the glass window of a cake shop. I have secretly watched it countless times. I have imagined its taste countless times. I almost had it, but now it has become a mess. I squatted down. I picked out a clean piece and took a bite. The taste was not as good as expected. Not even as good as a cheap cupcake. But I still finished the cake. When the cake was finished, Franklin called, "Rita Brooks." I could hear his voice and vaguely Alice's. "I'm here," I said softly. "There is something I want to tell you, please don't cry first." I am a bit of a tearful person, and my tear glands are naturally shallower than those of ordinary people. "Franklin, are you done yet? You're still trying to coax her when they're about to break up?" Alice's voice came, sounding angry. Franklin's tone immediately became hurried. "Let's break up. They said your face was scratched. I will give you some money. Don't make trouble. Your father couldn't earn that much money even after 3 years of fishing." I didn't have time to say anything. The phone was hung up hastily. 03. Franklin has always been a very generous person. I heard he had dated several people before. They are always generous when they are dating. If we break up, they will give us a large breakup fee. My best friend Marcia grabbed my ear and gave me some advice. Don't be stupid. Don't be a fool to give money. She was dumped on her birthday, and her face was injured and almost disfigured. We were merciful not to ask for compensation for mental damages. The wound from the forehead to the corner of the eye began to heal slowly. Franklin has not yet transferred the money to me. I tried to go to him and Alice to get an explanation, but I didn't even see Franklin. Instead, he was severely ridiculed by Alice and her sisters. When planning to call the police, my family suddenly ran into trouble again. My dad has a small fishing boat. When I went fishing at sea 2 days ago, I accidentally bumped into someone else's yacht due to the wind and waves. It's going to cost money, a lot of money. If you can't produce it, you will go to jail. If the compensation Franklin gave me was the same as the legend said, just barely enough to cover. My dad was so worried that half of his hair turned white. I transferred all the money from my part-time job and scholarship to him. It's still a drop in the bucket. Marcia thought I was not doing well enough, so she snatched my phone and sent a message to Franklin. Soon his phone call came, but when I picked up the phone it was Alice's voice. 04. Rita. Who? It is true that when one is poor, one's ambitions are short. It's not enough that you've taken advantage of me so much, and you still have the nerve to ask for compensation? Women like you who come from fishing villages are really good at fishing and catching fish, right? My face turned red and I was too dumb to say anything in reply, but the tears fell first. How could she have the nerve to say that to me? Franklin and I have been dating for less than a year. Every conflict is because of her. The first time, because of her, Franklin left me alone and I almost met a bad guy. We were in a Cold War for half a month and I cried for half a month. The second time, because of her, Franklin flew abroad and could not be contacted for a week. By then I had already made up my mind to break up. But after he came back, he was in a very bad condition and had a minor car accident. His friend called a lot and said he wanted to see me. When I saw him, my heart softened again. The third time was on my birthday. I was almost disfigured. The doctor said that it was only half a centimeter away from injuring the eyeball. Shouldn't they give me money? I just want what I deserve. I suppressed the sob in my voice and said, "You hurt my face. You're not disfigured, are you?" Alice sneered and hung up the phone. Then he transferred $5,000 to me using Franklin's account. I clutched my phone, tears streaming down my face. In the end, he still stubbornly confiscated the money. Accepting this money means settling the matter privately. I am a poor person from the village and cannot compete with young masters and young ladies like them. But one day I will make Alice pay for her mistakes. 05. By the appointed day the money had not been collected. The owner of the yacht came to the door. I'm actually wondering, are rich people like them also so idle? He would come to my house in person for such a small matter. Is he afraid that we will abandon the ship and run away without paying him any compensation? I looked at the man secretly. I heard Franklin mention the brand of the watch he was wearing. At least 8 digits. I can't figure it out, so I just stopped thinking about it. Just be with my dad and brother and keep a low profile. I hope he can show mercy. And this man named Roy Cooper did lend a helping hand. Dad was a little confused. You said give me a new fishing boat? My brother was so excited that he was shaking all over. You said, can I open a shop and do business on land? My dad dreams of having one of the most advanced fully automatic fishing boats. My brother dreams of going ashore, opening a small shop and settling down, and never fishing again. Yes, as long as she marries me. Roy pointed at me and got straight to the point. She has a good fortune and will bring good luck to me. If we get married this year, my assets will double. My father and brother all looked at me and said, Rita, what do you think? I was stunned. Roy looked to be no more than 27 or 28 years old. He has a handsome appearance but looks fierce when he doesn't smile. He is worth billions, tall and long-legged. No matter how you look at it, I make money. I swallowed nervously. Dad has a new fishing boat, my brother has a shop, why don't I have anything? Roy was stunned at first, but then he smiled. When he smiled, he looked gentle and elegant. I felt my face getting hot and was too embarrassed to look at him again. But he waved his hand and someone brought in a lot of small cakes. It's a very fragrant cupcake. I can eat 3 in one sitting. I held the cake and asked him a few more important questions. Your last name is Cooper, do you know Alice? Roy thought for a while and said, it seems that there is this person among the younger generation of the Cooper family. Is she afraid of you? Roy's smile deepened. Her whole family should be afraid of me. Are the Coopers more powerful than the Hicks in Hong Kong? Certainly. Okay then. I hugged the cake tightly and nodded vigorously. I promise. But I'm still in school, can we get married later? Roy looked at me deeply and smiled. We can get the certificate first, and the wedding will be after you graduate. I raised my hand to him. Deal. Roy high-fived me. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Cooper. My face turned slightly red. You should call me by my name for now. I don't want to make it public just yet. Roy stood up. He was really tall. I had to look up to see him. Okay, Rita. My nickname sounded a little weird when he pronounced it, to the extent that, even after he left, my ears were still burning. 06. I occasionally run into Franklin and Alice at school. They are sometimes very affectionate. Sometimes we quarrel, but they reconciled quickly. I began to consciously avoid them. Many classmates talked about me behind my back and I missed out on an opportunity. Alice must be extremely jealous now, but no one knows. I often wake up in the middle of the night and open my phone to check my mobile accounts. Inside was the sky-high betrothal gift Roy gave me. Count that string of zeros many times. Then fall asleep contentedly. Summer vacation is coming soon. I went home and went fishing with my dad, completely away from Franklin's circle. So, when he received a call from his friend that day, I was quite surprised. After a few pleasantries, my friend got down to business. Rita, Franklin wants to meet you at the old place tonight. I was just about to refuse. Dress up and wear something nice. I'm going to let you in on a secret. Franklin and Alice broke up. Really? Seized the opportunity. I didn't even have time to get a word in. The phone was hung up. Dad is calling me to close the net. I quickly forgot about it. 07. The friend came back and patted Franklin with a smile. I just got off the phone with Rita. The others immediately started to make a noise. Franklin, if Rita cries, will you be soft-hearted? Franklin dusted off his cigarette ashes and chuckled. Let's see. But seriously, Franklin, Rita's temper is much better than Alice's. Yeah, Rita is really good. Do you remember when she came to see you after you had the car accident? I burst into tears as soon as I entered the ward. It hurts me just watching this. Franklin seemed to be thinking about the past, and a soft color gradually appeared in his eyes. You and Alice have been hanging out together these days. Rita must have been hiding and crying. I remember that the last time I saw her, she seemed to have lost a lot of weight. There's still a little mark on the scar on my forehead. Franklin's hand holding the cigarette paused slightly. Rita was also injured that day. But how could he be so cruel as to abandon her and leave? However, Rita is very well behaved and easy to coax. He went home and changed into a new white shirt. Rita likes him to wear a white shirt. Rita's face turned red on their first date. She didn't even dare to look up at him. When he kissed her, she almost fainted from nervousness. He also bought hydrangeas, which Rita loved very much. When driving to the appointment, I bought a new cake. Rita is very greedy and especially likes sweet cakes. The birthday was ruined by Alice. But it doesn't matter. He will buy her a bigger and more expensive one. Franklin was standing by the car, holding the flowers. He knew that his friends were not far away, waiting to watch the excitement of the night. He was actually somewhat excited and nervous. It's like a first date. But time passes by every second. Rita never came. Until the moon became so sleepy that it hid deep in the clouds. Franklin looked at his watch and it was almost dawn. He finally lowered himself and called Rita for the first time. But he only hits this one. If she still refuses to come down the stairs, then I'm sorry. He will also consider withdrawing his plan to get back together. But the phone rang for a long time, no one answered, and then it hung up. Franklin frowned, anger growing in his chest. Suddenly, I heard friends not far away exclaiming, "A car is coming. Is it Rita?" Of course it is. Rita likes Franklin so much. He subconsciously turned around and looked, and his eyes gradually brightened. A taxi stopped not far away. A corner of the snow-white skirt swayed in the night breeze. That figure is slim and petite, who else could it be but Rita? 08. Franklin felt his anger disappear instantly. He subconsciously wanted to move forward. But he stopped abruptly. He waited for her all night. She didn't even answer his calls. Although he really wanted to see her at this moment. But he won't take the initiative to step forward. But the figure has turned around at this moment. The stars only have a faint and dim light. The light of the street lamps is high and dim. But it was enough for him to distinguish clearly. The girl who came was not Rita. Even at first glance, their figures, clothes, and even hair are very similar. But no, it's just not. The friends hiding in the dark probably also saw who was coming. Suddenly, everything became quiet. The look on Franklin's face was extremely cold. After a moment, he suddenly threw away the bouquet in his hand, turned around and got into the car. But Alice had already trotted over and called him in a crying voice. "Franklin, you're looking for Rita. Isn't it because she looks like me in the past? You don't like me arguing with you, you don't like me being jealous, and you don't like me wearing something too sexy." Alice started to cry as she spoke. "Then I'll go back to my old self and we can be together, okay?" Franklin looked at Alice in front of him. She looks beautiful when she cries. The black long straight hair and white skirt look very pure. They have been together and apart for so many years, and now she really looks like the way he was when he first saw her and fell in love with her. But what even he himself found unbelievable was, he looked at Alice's tears, and although he still felt soft-hearted, he no longer felt as distressed as before. 09. Even more so when he saw Alice crying. Inexplicably, the person I was thinking of was Rita. She doesn't cry hysterically like this. I always shed big tears, but I hold back and don't cry out loud. She loves to laugh every day, and is well-behaved and gentle. No matter what he said, she just nodded and said, "Okay." Seems like he never has any temper. After being together for a long time, I did feel a little bored. He felt that she was not as lively as Alice, not as pretty as Alice, and had the same interests and hobbies as him, so they could play together better. But this time, after I really got back together with Alice. But he soon got tired of her. After the last fierce quarrel, he made some harsh remarks. There will be no reconciliation, and no going back to the old lover. Alice was proud and arrogant, so of course she agreed. I didn't expect that she couldn't help but run over here tonight. She also dressed up as what she called a country bumpkin. For a spoiled young lady like her, it's a rare thing. Franklin and she had known each other for many years after all. After all, I couldn't bear it. "Alice, don't make yourself so embarrassed. Go back first." "Is it because of Rita? She's just a stand-in for me. A bumpkin who grew up in a fishing village. Franklin, are you crazy? You want to leave me for her?" Alice's emotions got out of control again, and she became hysterical again. "I don't want to argue with you, go home and calm down first." Franklin turned around to get in the car, but Alice blocked the door. "Franklin, what do you want from me? I have already wronged myself to please you, and I have also said that I am willing to change back to the way you like." She clutched Franklin's sleeves and started crying louder and louder. "Rita is with you just for your money. Franklin, I'm sincere to you, can't you see? If she really cared about you, would she stand you up tonight? Would she let you wait here like an idiot? After you broke up, the only time she contacted you was to ask you for compensation. Have you forgotten?" Franklin's face gradually darkened. He gritted his teeth and said, "She was injured that day. It's only right to compensate her. I asked the doctor, it's just a minor injury, just a few stitches, not disfiguring at all." Seeing his unhappy expression, Alice said, "And she broke the appointment tonight. She agreed but didn't come. What does that mean?" Franklin said nothing, but his expression became more gloomy. Alice knew that he had been proud and conceited since childhood. Being able to bow your head once is already a miracle. Rita wanted to play hard to get, but she picked the wrong target. Franklin, she just sees you as a rich man and wants to climb up the social ladder. We are childhood sweethearts and we are well matched. My love for you is without any purpose." Franklin seemed to be moved by her words. He suddenly took a step forward and gently touched Alice's face. "Haven't you always wanted to go out to sea? Let's go together tomorrow." Alice immediately became happy. Then I'll ask my cousin to borrow a yacht, and we can go sea fishing, okay? Franklin thought of Alice's cousin who had great connections. This back and forth is a good opportunity to get close to him. He is now about to graduate and join the family company. Although Hicks' family had some property, he also had many children of his generation, and many of them were outstanding. He doesn't want to be an idle second-generation rich man, making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month to survive. If he could establish a relationship with the Cooper family, it would undoubtedly be extremely beneficial to him. Thinking of this, Franklin's voice became softer. Wouldn't that be inconvenient? No, my cousin is super rich and he is very generous to his younger generations. When I went to pay New Year's greetings last year, my cousin praised me. Alice was confident and proud. She knew that how could a poor, cunning and lowly person like Rita possibly compete with her? Even if Franklin's feelings for her have faded now. But she has the Cooper family and a cousin like Roy behind her. Franklin knows what is important and what is not. Know who you should choose in the end. 10. It was only the next day that Franklin and his friends were ready to go out to sea. After waiting for a long time, I still didn't get any news from Alice. Franklin simply called. Alice took a while to answer the phone, but her voice sounded a little strange, as if she was crying. I'm sorry, Franklin, but my cousin needs to use the yacht today, so we can only borrow it another day. Your cousin has more than one yacht, right? Alice stammered and couldn't answer. Franklin laughed and said, You are lying to me, Alice. It seems that you have no say in front of your cousin. After saying that, he hung up the phone. As soon as he hung up the phone, Alice threw her phone in anger. Obviously, her uncle agreed to lend her the yacht at first. But after asking for the name, he suddenly refused to lend it to me. And he also said politely, Any young Cooper can borrow it except Alice. In less than 3 minutes, the news spread throughout the Cooper family. She was so embarrassed that her father got so angry that he slapped her in the face. The sisters at home laughed at her openly and secretly. Alice couldn't understand why her cousin said that. Obviously, she has always behaved very well in front of her uncle. She racked her brains for a long time but couldn't come up with any answer. What did I do wrong to make my uncle unhappy? She couldn't figure it out, but she had a vague premonition. From now on, their family status in the Cooper family is likely to plummet. Originally, my parents relied on my uncle for food. And now, she has quietly offended her uncle. Alice lay on the bed. The more she wanted to cry, the more sad she became. How should she remedy this? What's even more outrageous is that she has no idea what she did wrong. 11. Franklin, I have a good idea. Seeing that Franklin was in a bad mood, the friend thought of something interesting. Rita's family lives in a fishing village. Her father also has a fishing boat and often goes out to sea to fish. Why don't we go to Rita's village, give her father some money, and rent their fishing boat? In fact, it is common for these young men to rent yachts and go out to sea. But his friends knew what Franklin was thinking, so they catered to his preferences. Fishing is a small matter. Meeting Rita is the most important thing. Franklin laughed and said, Aren't you afraid that their fishing boat will capsize? But the group still went there in a mighty procession. When Franklin saw Rita busy on the fishing boat, I almost blacked out. He usually looks well-behaved and gentle at school. Now he is wearing dirty work clothes and holding a big harpoon, and he catches fish accurately with every spear. She is just like a wild girl. Tisk, that's wild. That's powerful enough. Franklin, if she throws that harpoon towards us, there will be a lot of blood on the spot. Franklin stared intently at the slender but agile figure on the boat. I cursed my friend. I'll kill you first. 12. In fact, I had noticed Franklin and his group a long time ago, but I don't have time for them. This group of young masters always frequent top clubs and cruise ship parties. People would only come to a small fishing village like ours when they have nothing to do. Of course, it's to have fun. It was because of Franklin that I had any contact with them. But now, all of them have nothing to do with me. But as soon as I got off the boat with the harpoon, Franklin called me. I didn't hide either. This is in our village and I'm not afraid of them. Just walk straight over. What do you want to talk to me about? Franklin looked at me, then at the harpoon in my hand, which was taller than him. Put it aside for now. I clenched my fist a little tighter. This is for spearing fish, are you scared? Franklin's face froze and he changed the subject. You want to rent my fishing boat? I shook my head. No, my dad has to go out to sea. Franklin reported a number with a cold face. I was a little shaken, but he still shook his head. No, there's a boatload of workers waiting. Franklin doubled the number again. I shook my head slowly. I still have to earn tuition money. Franklin doubled again. I immediately smiled and said, Deal. Rita, you come with us too. You are familiar with your boat, and we caught some fish, so we need you to make some soup. I was about to speak when Franklin said, Don't worry, the tip is generous. While they were fishing, I was just lying on the deck, feeding the seagulls. When I was almost falling asleep in the sun, Roy called me out of the blue. I immediately jumped up. I like talking to Roy on the phone, or video chatting with him, or sending him some boring messages. He is very patient and doesn't think what I say is meaningless. Don't despise me for my background, nor do you despise the calluses on my hands. He also praised me for my good fishing and swimming skills. In short, in his eyes, I seem to be very good in every way. So much so that now my self-confidence has increased more than 100 times. Roy, I made a lot of money today. As soon as the phone was connected, I started chattering nonstop. Yes, this is a good deal. Rita, you are getting better and better. Roy immediately praised me generously. I was also very proud, lying on the blanket and shaking my feet. Yeah, now I just need to bask in the sun, cook some soup and get a big tip. If this kind of business comes a few times a year, I can just lie down and relax. Rita. Roy suddenly called my nickname. What's the matter? Has it been another week since we last met? I counted on my fingers. Indeed. I'll pick you up in the evening. I turned my head and glanced at Franklin and his group not far away. I don't know if they want to go night fishing. Roy chuckled over there. Don't worry, it won't happen. Okay then, come pick me up. Okay, I have some business to attend to right now. I'll call you back later. All right. I hung up the phone with some reluctance. But just after hanging up the phone, one of Franklin's friends suddenly fell into the sea. I hurried over and followed everyone else to throw the swimming ring to him. He also untied the lifeboat tied to the side of the boat and threw it over. But this person fell into the sea and was frightened, so he could only thrash around in panic. After a while, he had drunk a belly full of sea water and was drifting farther and farther away. I sighed helplessly and took off my work clothes. Rita, what are you doing? Franklin grabbed me. I didn't understand. Go save people. What else can I do? You go. What else? Are you going? I pushed his hand away and saw that the man was about to be knocked unconscious by the waves. Without bothering to talk to them anymore, he threw off his work clothes, climbed over the fence beside the boat, and dived into the sea. 14. Franklin felt like that was the first time he met Rita. She jumped into the sea like a beautiful little fish. When the waves met her, it seemed as if they were playing with her. The fish also circled around her affectionately. A group of them stood by the boat, gradually becoming quiet and no longer talking. The sea breeze was howling and the sails were blown up. It seems that only these noises remain between heaven and earth. Franklin couldn't take his eyes off her. I can't move away for even a second. Her arms were slender yet powerful. She split the waves and quickly swam to the person who fell into the water. She was obviously professionally trained. The actions of saving lives are skillful and standard. The man was quickly pushed to the lifeboat. The man grabbed the lifeboat and gradually recovered. Rita pushed him onto the boat but did not get on herself. She swam happily in the sea for a few more laps. I actually caught 2 beautiful little fish. She waved her arms to show them her little fish. Her eyes were curved with laughter. The waves are sparkling, and the sunlight spreads on the sea like broken gold. And she bathed in the sparkling water. But it is even brighter than the gold. Her hair was wet, revealing her entire smooth forehead. Franklin saw the pink scars at the ends of her eyebrows and eyes. There was a sudden pain in my heart like a needle prick. He seemed to understand something suddenly. Rita was never a stand-in from the beginning. He had never used her as a substitute. The real her is nothing like Alice. And the reason why she was so well-behaved and obedient in front of him before. Never show this side of yourself. Because she really liked him at that time. So she hid all these aspects that she thought he would dislike. And now, maybe she really doesn't like him and doesn't care about him anymore. So she can be herself without restraint. Franklin felt inexplicably uncomfortable. The happier Rita laughed, the more uncomfortable he felt. She was like a small fish in the sea, and he seemed unable to catch her. 15. When I came out of the shower and changed my clothes, Franklin is waiting for me outside. We are heading back. Franklin was called back by the elders of the Hicks family, saying that there was an urgent matter. And I also want to date Roy. So now all I can think about is that once I get off the boat, I'm going to rush home and change into a beautiful dress. Roy likes to buy clothes for me, and I also like the beautiful dress he bought. What's up? I asked casually while drying my hair. Rita. Franklin suddenly took a step forward and gently grabbed my wrist. I was so scared that I quickly pushed him away and stepped back several steps. Just keep talking, don't touch me. Franklin stood still and said, Okay, I won't do anything. Let's talk, Rita. What are you going to say? Does the wound on your forehead still hurt? It doesn't hurt anymore. I know a great cosmetic surgeon. I'll take you there to get your scar removed. No, I already have a doctor's appointment. Roy had already made an appointment with the doctor for me. He said he could guarantee that at the time of my wedding, there wouldn't be any visible scars. I will be a glowingly beautiful bride. What happened that day was my fault. And the money I promised to give you. No. I finally looked up at Franklin. This was also the first time I looked him in the eye so seriously since we met. I liked him, although I only liked him during that period. The time spent feeling sad and aggrieved is always longer than the time spent feeling happy and sweet. When we finally broke up, it was extremely unpleasant. However, the relationship between him and me has not reached the point of a life and death struggle. I am a simple-minded person. I just like to remember happy things. I don't want to mention or recall the unhappiness of the past. What's more, I have a lot of money now. Roy gave me a small cake and a betrothal gift that day. Later, when we got our marriage certificate, he also gave me a huge amount of dowry. My piggy bank is full and I feel safe. I have already taken big steps forward and looked ahead. Rita. Franklin's voice was extremely gentle. Can we get back together? I'll chase you again. I interrupted him. I can't have my 21st birthday again. I also can't pretend that those injuries never happened. Franklin, let's all move forward. But you were the one who liked me first. He grabbed the corner of my clothes and refused to let go. I smiled and said, But the one who likes first actually takes the initiative. I can take back my love for you at any time. I can like someone else. That's impossible, Rita. It's not like we haven't broken up before, but we always made up quickly. It's okay this time. Not this time. I pushed his hand away to stop him from coming any closer. Why? I don't want to tell him about my affairs. So he just chuckled and said, It has nothing to do with you. 16. The night I went on a date with Roy, I got drunk for the first time. When he carried me into the car, I was dizzy and held his neck tightly and refused to let go. Roy laughed. Rita, remember your alcohol tolerance. I can't remember. Why should I remember? Roy will be by my side, and I will be safe from any danger or accident. There will always be times when I'm not with you. I won't drink unless you're with me. I lay in his arms, feeling limp and not wanting to move. His body was hot and hard, and it was uncomfortable to hug him. I touched it, rubbed it, and twisted in his arms for a long time. I barely found a comfortable sitting position. But I feel comfortable. Roy seemed to be in great pain at the moment. I looked up at him. The alcohol was getting to me, making my vision blurry. I simply held his face in my hands. Roy, what's wrong with you? Rita. His voice suddenly became hoarse and his body temperature seemed to begin to rise. I feel hot, he is like a furnace. I couldn't help but want to get off him. But Roy suddenly tightened his grip around my waist. His fingers were long and strong, and his palms were hot. It ironed my skin through a thin layer of dress. I stared at him in a daze. And Roy had already lowered his head and kissed me deeply. It was a deep kiss I had never experienced before. It is powerful and domineering to the extreme, but also more unforgettable. It was as if a door to an unknown world was slowly opening in front of me. When the kiss ended, I felt a little unsatisfied. Maybe it was the alcohol, or maybe it was just that I am just a bit wild and unruly. When Roy was about to take me off his body, I rushed over and kissed him. More kisses. Roy, kiss me like you did just now. Rita. The car was moving forward slowly. There was a flickering light coming in from outside the car window. Roy's face was very close to me, and his magnified facial features made him look even more rugged and handsome. The breath is hot, tangled together. I felt a little itchy inside, so I opened my mouth and bit his chin. Don't be so hesitant, Roy. His Adam's apple rolled violently, and he suddenly turned over and pressed me down on the seat. Long fingers pinched my jaw. Rita, open your mouth. The car stopped for a long time, but we were still kissing passionately. I don't know when his suit and shirt were torn into a mess by me. The abdominal muscles and mermaid line are faintly visible. It makes me even more confused and obsessed. But in the end, Roy pushed me away. I felt very uncomfortable, but I couldn't stand the drunkenness. When he carried me out of the car, I fell asleep in his arms. 17. As Roy carried me upstairs, he kissed me gently on the side of my face. His little mermaid has grown up, and he finally fulfilled his promise as promised. The Cooper family is prosperous and has many outstanding children of the same generation. There is constant fighting, both overt and covert. Roy's father was once involved in a vicious power struggle, to the point of involving his wife and children. He was kidnapped and thrown into the deep sea. Just when he thought he would fall into the deep sea along with the rocks and be eaten by fish, Rita suddenly appeared. Her diving equipment was very simple, but she swam very fast. While falling into a coma, he even thought he had really met the little mermaid in the fairy tale. She cut the rope with the dagger she carried with her, then dragged him to the surface. He lay on that shabby little fishing boat all night, and his life was saved by her fish soup. She talks a lot and chatters nonstop. She has many wishes. I want to buy a new fishing boat for my dad. I want my brother to go to the shore and open a shop to do business. She wants the boy she likes to like her too. I want to have endless little cakes. He didn't have the energy to respond to her at that time, but I kept it firmly in my heart. And now, it was time for him to fulfill them for her one by one. But the person she liked once was Franklin. Now, would he be the one she likes? He thought he had enough patience to wait until the day when the answer would be revealed. 18. I am in my last few months of school. Franklin would come and bother me from time to time at first, but within a few days he disappeared. Later I heard from my best friend Marcia that Franklin seemed to be in trouble. It caused a huge loss for their company. Maybe in the future, I will never be able to enter the core industry of the Hicks family again. And Alice seemed to have been blacklisted by the Hong Kong socialite circle overnight. I could vaguely guess that all this might be Roy's work. He actually took my childish joke seriously. But I'm not that generous. Of course, I won't plead for Franklin and Alice. These are just things you've heard of. I didn't take it to heart at all. A year passed in the blink of an eye. I inherited my father's fishing boat and I'm getting married. Roy is usually very low-key. But this wedding was unprecedentedly high-profile and luxurious. When the whole Hong Kong island's attention was attracted by the wedding, Roy said something in private. There will be a big wedding banquet, but there are 2 people who are not invited. Could you please tell me who they are, Mr. Cooper? Franklin, the 4th son of the Hicks family. A 9th daughter from the Cooper family's side branch, Alice. In just a few minutes, the names of Franklin and Alice spread throughout Hong Kong Island again. Afterwards, I quietly asked Roy, if they do this, they will have no place to stand in Hong Kong Island in the future. Alice still wants to call you uncle. Will Cooper's family think you are too unkind? Roy pulled me into his arms. He played with my fingers, gently rubbing the thin calluses on the fingertips. After a while, he slowly said, I have been very merciful. After all, he was a man who had fought through blood and rain. Just preventing these 2 people from gaining a foothold in Hong Kong City was indeed a mercy to him. And the reason why he did this, it's because he, who never believed in fate before, now believes in it. He wanted his wife to live a long life and grow old with him. Therefore, just consider it as accumulating virtue. He hated Alice and he hated Franklin even more. Whenever she thought about the fact that he had been liked by her, she couldn't sleep at night. Now both of them have left Hong Kong City and will never come back. Roy felt a little relieved. I don't see you being merciful. But this is fine. I haven't forgotten how arrogant Alice was after she hurt me. I pulled my fingers back and frowned again. My hands are still rough, but you're having fun spearing the harpoon. What can I do? Roy shook his head helplessly. That's true. Calluses are fine, Roy doesn't mind them anyway. Happiness is the most important thing. Rita. Roy hugged me from behind. We stood in front of the huge floor-to-ceiling windows and looked out at the harbor and mountains in the distance. This whole bay is yours. What do I need such a huge ocean for? I looked back at him and said, all I need is a boat and a small piece of sea. That's all. I was startled and suddenly I thought of something. It was a rare moment of clarity in my mind. Oh yes, I want you too. Roy suddenly laughed. He lowered his eyes and looked at me, smiling for a long time. Then he slowly lowered his head and kissed me. You still have a conscience. I was not shy at all and I just hooked my arms around his neck and stood on tiptoe to respond to him. Don't stop kissing in the middle of a kiss tonight. I feel so bad. Every time I go back home, I can't sleep well and have messy dreams. Roy suddenly hugged me tighter, pressing me against him. Good. Even if you ask me to stop this time, I won't stop. I won't stop. He kissed me and laughed. Okay, we'll just have to wait and see, Rita. End of full text.